Zio, Halito, what up, guys? What up, guys?
What's going on with you?
Peace to everybody tuning in or about to tune in. Dang, where my cuz go? All right, here we go. Bring him back in there. Cuz, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to dip out for a minute and I'll be back.
All right. So what's going on, everybody? We took a little hiatus, but we back, you know, just dropping in right quick and stuff. Peace to those who joining or those are going to join in the future. Peace. But some interesting things that y'all seen for this year or for the past couple of months. What have y'all been checking out or what have y'all seen on social media or on the news? Anybody care to share what they seen on social media outlets? Yeah, you know. Alito, oh, you haven't missed anything. You haven't missed anything. Happy solstice, happy winter solstice to everybody. Yeah, it's that time of the year. So yeah, you haven't missed anything. We just came on because we was on a little hiatus. Because you had Father's. Oh, excuse me. You had Father's Day, and then you had many other days that actually fell on the holidays. So we said we was gonna come back this Sunday, which they don't have nothing going on. So we back now. Yes, happy summer solstice. So what have y'all seen on social media that's dealing with the so-called indigenous beef that's supposed to be going on? I know they got people on TikTok talking about um blacks, other words for it, blacks are not indigenous or aboriginals of North America, you know what I'm saying? And you got people that's going after people that actually have blood descendancy of being of these tribes who they trying to say is extinct or that they were freemans or whatever else that they were trying to call the people, which is funny. You know. So what y'all think about that? You know, And they got people, they want people to go ahead on and just, you know, show us your genealogy, show us your DNA test. Like, who are they that you have to show who you are to them? You know what I'm saying? But yet they tell you to do a DNA test, but yet they don't want to do a DNA test because it's going to show that they have Asian ancestry. You know what I'm saying? So you telling so-called African Americans to go and get their blood test done and show the results, but yet y'all don't want to do the same thing that you asking of other people to do. That's funny. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yes, yes. That controversial stuff ain't been showing up on my timeline either. You know, maybe because of the algorithm change. Yeah, that's good to see them getting acknowledged on Juneteenth. You know, and they need more um, information like that needs to go out to let people know that hey, we still here. We ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now because it's bad boys for life. I feel like they're always going to be going back and forth. One side will say they are indigenous to here, and the other side will say they are African Americans. Yeah, that's what they would say. That's exactly what they would say. But I mean, if you know who you are and everything, and you know your family oral story, who is those that said no, that's not it, right? Who are they to say who your people are and are not, right? And that's the whole thing. And then what's so funny is that they're trying to go to the United States government and trying to use the traditional courts to try to say what other people is not. But yet they are federal recognized tribes that try to do these things, but yet this is the same government that put you on the concentration camp. You know, if you look at it like that, what they fail to realize is their story has nothing to do with the Southeast, not at all. And I think that's what they upset about because they don't have anything to do with the Southeast. The Southeast isn't their thing. Hmm. Right? Oh, they will say what makes you indigenous and why aren't you claiming to be your other admixtures? But see, what they don't understand is that people do claim they admixtures. But what they fail to realize is you can still claim your admixture, but the thing is, what you was raised as. That's what people don't fail to realize. You know. So, well, every nation have been touched by slavery. So mostly. But see, you asked saying about anti-black, but first of all, what is black? Who who called the people black? That's the thing. You know, people are not crayons, and that's where people don't have to come from. People are not crayons. They saying black and white. That's no bloodline called black or white. You know what I'm saying? Right? When you go back, look and start seeing when they started calling people black. When they start calling people black, and when they started calling people white, that's where people need to start at. When they started calling people black, they started calling people white. That's no more than fair to ask, right? Because I guarantee you, me, every person or tribe that they was met, the people never say, "Oh, we black," or we white. You know what I'm saying? He called himself an indigenous black man. I mean, if that's what he want to identify himself as, then hey, Yeah, some things is not meant for solidarity. You know, I was always told when you know better, you do better, you know? You know, see, when you do better, when you know better, you do better. And some people, like you said, some people are so accustomed to it, you know, it just became the norm. Even within their own community of the alphabet people, right? Um, some of them don't even stand up together. So to stand in solidarity, you know, would that really be defeating the purpose? I mean, if people haven't done their genealogy, of course they go fall for the banana in the tailpipe. You know what I'm saying? Genealogy has always been key. And then the question goes to, well, why they waited this long for them to tell you to come back home? But see, there's something that's called the ugly truth that people don't want to touch on, because how you think the kings of Africa got rich? Well, richer, I should say, richer, right? How you think they got richer? Because people didn't like the information when they said that, oh, it was the Africans that sold the Africans. Well, guess what? That's right and exact. Because if you ever saw the movie that they got out from Hollywood talking about the Woman King, right? They were showing where the tribe of the Dahomey in them was actually selling other Africans to the Europeans. But nobody never touched that. Nobody didn't do a movie review showing that part, that, oh, they had Africans selling Africans. Yeah, you know, my thing is this: if you was to go online and you look up what West African nations participated in the transatlantic slave trade, you'd be surprised. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. It's always a paper trail and a money trail. Y'all look that up. Look up what West African nations participated in the transatlantic slave trade and put the link up there. Somebody do that for me. Because people don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about it. Cuz, are you able to pull that up?
Nope.
Or you still out and
If
about?
you pull it up, I'll share your screen.
Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can pull it up. Ah, let me see if I can pull it up. Ah, because people don't like talking about that.
Did y'all talk about the Muskogos and the Nacimiento, Mexico? Yeah. Did you touch on that, cuz?
No, I ain't touched on that yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Oh boy. Let's see. Okay. Let's do this. All right. Let me go to this right here. Share screen. Let's share screen. And we're gonna share the screen right here. Can y'all see it? Can you see it?
Wait a minute. Yeah, it's up there now.
Yeah. Cause you got people them say that the transatlantic slave trade never happened, but I beg to differ on that one. But because I mean, if you say the people that you come from the southeast, we know that the transatlantic slave trade happened. But that's a whole nother story. But anyway, right here, they said that several of the West African nations and kingdoms participated in the transatlantic slave trade, primarily as sources of enslaved people. This included the kingdom of the Dahomey, right, which I spoke about just right before I had to look it up, right, dealing with the Dahomey, right, present day Benin, all right, and the Ashanti Empire, present day Ghana, all right, and various groups in modern day Nigeria, such as the Oyo Empire and the Oro Confederacy. Other regions like Senegambia and Brighton and Benin, all right. So right here they already have, like, they show you. So if you really want, and people be talking about they want reparations, but yet you're not talking about the African tribes. Why you not trying to go after those tribes that participated? Those African tribes. You don't think them African tribes had got money from a lot of them Europeans? Come on, now it's a paper trail. So now you got the presidents of these countries and they're talking about come back to Africa, come back to Africa. Why come back when you sold my ancestors? Come on. Nobody want to talk about the deep rooted issue about it's people that look like you sold you to those dark skinned Europeans and pale face Europeans. But hey, who am I though? But nobody don't want to talk about that. Oh, Mother Africa, Mother Africa. Oh, this. Oh, y'all need to come back to Ghana. Come back to Ghana.
No, I'm
You
good.
know, you know,
I'm
come
at
back to
home.
come back to Nigeria. Hold on, wait. Didn't the kings and them made deals with the European nations? Come on now, let's talk about this. Since they want to talk about, oh, Indians and them had African slaves and all of that. Well, you got to ask the question, well, how was so-called Indian nations able to acquire African slaves? How was they able? Because guess what? They didn't have no fucking money. So what they had to use to try to get as collateral to buy slaves, right? It wasn't the nation of Indian people that owned slaves. It was only certain individuals within the nation that owned slaves. It wasn't the nation itself. It wasn't the nation itself. It was those that was in the nation, like John Ross. You know, he was a Cherokee, but he was a rich Cherokee
Yeah,
because
Chief John Ross. Yeah.
yeah, he was a half breed. He was born with money. You know what I'm saying? But does that say that the nation owned slaves? No. That was that one particular individual that owned the slave. So tell them Pan Africans that. No, it was not a tribal nation that owned slaves. It was individuals within the nation that owned slaves. Because they'd be quick to say, oh, the Indians enslaved Africans. No, it was certain individuals in certain nations that owned slaves. But y'all not gonna talk about how these West African nations was selling y'all asses from going to war with other tribal people and everything, and they sold them people as prisoners of wars and gave them to the pale faced nations. But y'all don't want to talk about that. But y'all gonna turn a blind eye to that. All on TikTok, you got those that's from West Africa, and they call the African American a derogatory term that's in their language, in their tongue. You know what I'm saying? You know, they had some people that went over there and say some of them say they had a good experience, and some say they had a bad experience. But those that had bad experience outweigh those who had good experience. So you run from North America because you say that North America is racist, but yet you go over to Africa and they look at you like, oh, you're an African American. So now somebody that has the same skin tone as you don't even much like you. You know? Hey, but nobody don't want to address that. Wonderful Stone, they don't want to address that. Nobody not asking the question, what made you sell other Africans, right? Quote unquote, to other nations that's not of the African diaspora or culture. Why you sold them? Why you sold them to the pale face nations? What kind of commission did you get? Because the French and them gave the Dahomey and them guns. But hey, who am I? Get your most famous Pan-African person and ask them that. Why those West African nations was participating in the demise of other Africans. Ooh, ooh, I know they ain't gonna like that question. And I'm asking that question in love. It's not in hate, it's in love, it's all in love. Because I have an admixture. I have both Aboriginal and African nations within me. You know? That's the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
Somebody please somebody please go ask those kings of West Africa. Why are you feeling so guilty now?
Yeah,
For the
that would be interesting to hear their answer. Um, and shortly, can you touch on so the people can know about the Muskogos and Nacimiento, Mexico? Because that's one of the topics of the cat podcast today.
oh, that is? Because I
Yeah.
didn't see the flyer. You heard me?
Yeah, I said, "Oh my God!"
Yeah. I,
Listen, listen.
I mean, I went to my
Yeah,
inbox. I didn't see the flyer. I mean,
yeah.
like,
I put it on our social media
I'm
platforms. Yeah, that was one of the pictures. So can you share with the people about that? I thought about cousin Al to have him on because he also got heavy Muskogos. I know he
well, I
just had a
was
birthday, so I didn't even reach out to him because I know he just had a birthday. I didn't know if he was gonna be celebrating. So can you touch on that for the people? Cause I'm a mute because
well,
I'm in the store and they
well,
playing
well,
about
well. My thing is, I didn't know that was going to be the topic because I would have braced myself for the topic. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
oh my
I
god.
just
Okay.
I just only could give a short brief on it about how what everything happened when
Yeah.
everything
Go ahead.
happened after the 1860s and stuff when the people then went to Oklahoma and things wasn't right in Oklahoma, so they left Oklahoma and went down there into Texas and everything, and they wound up down there in Brackensville, Texas, and some of them went even further down into Texas on the borderline of Mexico, you know, and that's basically dealing with that. And then you have some of them that speak Creole. You actually have some
Mhm.
that speak Spanish. You have some of them that speak English, you know, and you have some of them that speak Muskogee, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah. So that's just off the top of the dome right there. But once again, I didn't see the flyer, and
Yeah, and you're gonna do better with paying attention to the flyers, cause
no, I actually been working, so I haven't even much been on social media. Like somebody just jumped back on social media like yesterday. So I haven't been. I've been going to get my coins, making that glue.
yeah, I know, me too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, I did post it on all our social media since we just came from Juneteenth. So that was the topic. The recap. The title says recap of Juneteenth, and we just had Father's Day. So the warriors are the fathers of our tribal
Well,
nation.
I saw the Father's Day one, but I didn't see the Juneteenth one about the. No, I did see the Juneteenth, but I didn't see where it was saying that it was gonna be speaking about the Moscatos and everything. So, but but the Juneteenth thing, um, dealing with Galveston, Texas, and all that there. What people in them fail to realize is that um that whole thing about Abraham Lincoln and their narratives about the Emancipation Proclamation and stuff and all that there was going on, dealing with the Civil War in the 1860s, and then you're supposed to free the slaves in 1865 and all that there, and then um, you had the so-called treaties with the five civilized tribes that was actually done with Albert Pike, and then the United States, and then we had on the grandfather it in, and they had fell up under the jurisdiction of the United States government under the War Department. So was the people really fucking free dealing with that? You know what I'm saying? Because they made him a 14th Amendment citizen, right? Which would be considered as a second class citizen, right? Because I mean, they stripped the people off the plantation, but put them under the federal government. That wasn't no better. That wasn't no better. It wasn't no better at all. That's why I didn't really like celebrate Juneteenth. I didn't celebrate that shit because number one, you didn't let the people go back to from which they came from dealing with their own nation and everything, which is supposed to be on the Liberty Bell that they used the book of Deuteronomy, if I'm not mistaken, about the day of Jubilee, and that if the person was enslaved, they're supposed to be released within the 50 year where they can go back to their nations. So they did not even much let the people go back to their nations. So fuck Juneteenth. Yeah, I said it. I said it. And I stand on it all with my nuts. I said it. Because what they did was, like what Abraham Lincoln said, what should we call these people? They didn't know what to call the people. So you say, you know what? These people don't have nowhere to go. We go take them in. You didn't even much ask them if they want to become citizens of the United States. And even then, even the time dealing with the Dred Scott decision, Chief Cheney said no matter if the Negro is free or a slave, they still would not be citizens of the Union Society. And they would not have any rights that a white man is bound to respect. So, with all that going on, you know what the Southern states said? Okay, y'all got the civil rights, y'all got the 14th Amendment, but guess what? We got the Jim Crow law. We gonna come and backdoor that shit. So, how was the states and them able to backdoor the federal government and still give people hell? Because if the 15th Amendment supposed to give people rights to vote, right? Dealing with the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, then why the people in them had to go in 1865 and 1868 to trying to have voting rights again, dealing with a civil. right thing at that time, and the United States Supreme Court said that civil rights was deemed unconstitutional. And that was like somewhere around what, the 1860s? Like 65, 68, 1868. But nobody don't talk about that though. So the 14th Amendment supposed to let you have supposed to be equal rights, but yet look what wind up happening. People them still was getting abused. People them was still getting hung. People were still getting murdered. Right? They didn't. People didn't care about that because they was in the dirty South and ain't nothing was done. Until you wind up having people dealing with the minister of defense. I mean the deacons of defense down here in Bogalusa, Louisiana. They're like, you know what, man, hell all this. They gonna stop lynching us and all that there. Man, look, we military vets and stuff, we gonna come down there to New Orleans, we gonna get what we gotta get. We gonna drive back to Bogalusa, we gonna deal with the Ku Klux Klan. After all that was done dealing with the so-called civil rights, they still had to fight. Mississippi, Jim Crow 2.0, right? Recently, like last year before last. In Georgia, oh, in order for you to vote, you must pass an assessment test. Right? Right? They're doing it again. But yet the 14th Amendment is supposed to done away with that. The 13th Amendment is supposed to done away with that. The 15th Amendment is supposed to done away with that. Because when I was doing my investigation on when the war amendments came about, they said, oh, that happened after the war. Okay, because it was like, well, the southern states in them, they broke away from the Union, but the United States in them still had jurisdiction over. But yet, those that voted for the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment was the northern states, right? Because the southern states in them was in Congress. So it was the northern states that voted for those amendments to be passed. Right? But the South and them knew something wasn't right with it, even though they said it was ratified. But if it was ratified, how was they able to come with a Jim Crow law and backdoor the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment? And I asked an attorney that, and they still couldn't give me a fucking answer. How was the states in them was able to backdoor the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment that's supposed to give free slaves rights, but yet the South said, man, fuck that. We gonna run this bitch like we run it. How was that able to be done? The South knew something. And they still know something. If y'all think I'm lying, go look up the Jim Crow law in Mississippi 2.0. They call it Jim Crow 2.0. If the federal government supposed to protect you, that's supposed to give you rights under the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment, and even then, why you gotta wait to get civil rights in doggone 1965 and 1968 when the doggone amendments was already done in the 1800s? Why you had to come back 100 years later and still fight for something that was supposed to be given to you in the 1800s, the later part of the 1800s? Something don't sound right to me. Something don't sound right to me. If the 13th, if the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment was passed in the 1860s, why you gotta wait 100 years later to fight for civil rights when you supposed to have those rights in 1865, in 1868? No, think about it. If the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment supposed to give Negroes rights, why they had to come back 100 years later to talk about civil rights when you had supposed to have constitutional rights under the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment? Well, actually, it's not called constitutional rights because you had the Bill of Rights. The Constitution is to secure the rights of the Bill of Rights. So I have to make that right there. Correct that right there. Because you had the Bill of Rights. Because the Bill of Rights, that was the bill to grant you the rights that the Constitution is supposed to protect. Because you had the Bill of Rights, and then that's when you had the Constitution. Because those things was called the federal papers. You had the Declaration of Independence, you had the Bill of Rights, and you had the Constitution. All those are called the Federalist Papers, the federal papers. All right. So once again, during the Reconstruction, right, era, wow, what they had to reconstruct, right? If the 13th, the 14th, or the 15th Amendment supposed to give the slaves and them their rights and their freedoms and everything, why the fuck you got to come back 100 years later talking about civil rights? Let me see. Let me see if I can find when they said that. Stop sharing right there. Hold on. Let me see if I can find when they was talking about how um the civil rights in the 1800s. I think it was 1880s or the Constitution. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay. All right. Let me go to share. I found it. Let me go to share. No, that's not that part. Let's see. Hope y'all can see it. Let's see. I'm sharing it. And where is Christina for she can share the screen? I'll go ahead on and read it since it didn't pop up on the screen. The Supreme Court declared Civil Rights Act of 1875 unconstitutional. In 1883, the court decision that the civil rights case stated that the 14th Amendment only applies to state um, action, not private ones. This means Congress could not regulate racial discrimination by individual or private business. The act aimed to guarantee equal access to public accommodation, but the Supreme Court ruled efficiency invalidated those protections. So, once again, if a business said they didn't want you in there, you couldn't go in there because now what goes on, right? You got federal law and then you got state law. The state law said they don't always say it's a private business. I don't want you niggas in here. And guess what? The state can't make them because that's based upon the individualism. They still doing redlining, right? Even with the banks and stuff. Oh, you don't want to live in this neighborhood, this, right? One side of the town mortgage is higher, and on the other side is low. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. Jim Crow never died. Well, well, I don't know what Christina is, but um, let me see something. Well, I'm about to go ahead on and end the show. It's about that time, you know. So yeah, that's what that right there. Once again, put up the disclaimer. You know that does not have any bearings to do with the nation that I'm a part of and any other thing that I'm affiliated with. That's just my own thing. Because what did the people get out of Juneteenth? You know, another day just to party and fuck around. You know what I'm saying? Nothing productive came out of it, right? So, um, yeah. So with that, y'all have a good one. You know what I'm saying? Once again, um, welcome to those who are on in the chat room and those who are going to be in the chat room later on when they view this and everything. Be like, "Ooh, Lord, he said, fuck Juneteenth." Yeah, I mean, it's just like every other holiday that they gave you. You know what I'm saying? What's productive of it? You know, um, so yeah, you know, y'all not talking about nationhood, right? You're not talking about repatriating back to the nation that you come from, but you just want to stay and be black. But hey, I mean, that's your God given right, right? Even according to your God and the Bible and all that, they wasn't calling people colors. He called them by nations, right? He told Abraham that you will be a father of many nations. He didn't say you could be a father of many blacks. That's for those Christians, right? Because that's to shine a little light on it. I had one dude talk about, yeah, he a black Christian. I'm like, yeah, and it shows. It shows because they had a code called the Christian Black Codes. The Christian Black Code. So isn't that ironic? Black Christians, you got the black codes, Christian black codes. But hey, you ain't hear from me. But y'all have a good one. I'll holler at y'all later. All right. One.